And welcome in, my math party people. Anderson here, your math coach. In this video, we're gonna have a very, very important skill to go over, because if you are looking forward into factoring trinomials, not just the ones that look like, let's say, x squared plus 6x plus 8, not these. When it gets a little more complicated, when you're trying to factor things like, let's say, 2x squared plus, let's say, 11x, plus something to the effect of, let's say 35, something like that. If you're trying to factor something like that, where that leading term, where that leading coefficient is bigger than 1, you need to learn the skill in this video. So I'm going to show you what factoring by grouping looks like, because once you get the hang of this, you're going to be totally prepared to crush things like this all day long. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, and let's show you what factoring by grouping looks like. All right, so over here, our first question says, factor out completely, whatever. And it says 5x cubed plus 15x squared plus 3x plus 9. Okay, so let's go ahead and tackle this and let's learn how to do it. Because I'm telling you right now, this is going to be very, very straightforward, just like the other stuff that we've been teaching, as long as you pay attention and practice along. So I'm going to take care of quite a few problems in this video, maybe like 5, 6 of them. That way you can really get the hang of it, dive into the worksheets, try it out yourself, and then move forward into the speed drill once you're ready. So here we go. So right over here, what we have is, again, 5x cubed plus 15x squared, and I'm going to write these by themselves, and then the 3x plus 9 over here, okay? So what we're doing here is we're going to group twos. We're going to group the first two terms, we're going to group the last two terms together. Because what you're going to do when you have this kind of predicament or situation is you're going to notice that when you do this, when you factor out each group individually, what's left is going to be the same thing for both. Doesn't make sense? Don't worry, watch this. So over here, I'm going to take a look at this group here. 5x cubed plus 15x squared. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and factor out what I can from it. Remember, you have to factor out the greatest common factor. And we've gone over that already in a few videos, a few videos ago. But here, we have 5 and 15. So the number that can come out is going to be 5, because 5 can go into both 5 and 15. So let's go ahead and take care of that first. So I'm going to take out a 5. What else can I take out? Well, we have x cubed and x squared. X cubed, x squared. So what can come out of both x squared and x cubed? Well, they share x squared, so I'm going to go ahead and take out an x squared. So right over here, I can pull out x squared as well. So on the inside of that parentheses, because again, I've basically grouped this and I'm grouping this, and I'm going to take care of this in a bit, okay? But with this, when we take out a 5x squared, all we're left with is x. Over here, we take out the 5, 15 divided by 5 is 3, and then x squared divided by x squared is just going to be, well, cancels out. So we have x plus 3 left on the inside. Now here's why that's interesting. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Here's why that's interesting. What I'm going to do over here is do the same thing. I'm going to factor out, so I'm going to use blue here. I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor. I have 3x and I have 9. Well, notice how they don't both have x terms, so we're just going to ignore the x's. But I do notice that we have a 3 and a 9, and notice, well, 3 and 9 are both divisible by 3, so I can factor out a positive 3. And what's left on that inside? Well, 3x divided by 3 is x, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this is the convenience that I wanted you to notice. Look at the x plus 3 in both of these groups. So with that said, what can happen now? Well, remember this, my party people. Let me just show you this. Off on the side, let me show you why what I'm about to do, I'm going to show you why it makes sense. So for example, let's go ahead and say, my party people, that we had, let's say, 5p plus, let's say, 7p. Of course, we can go ahead and write this as 5 plus 7, and then put the p in front, because we know that these are like terms. 5p and 7p are like terms, and so we can add those coefficients, making it 12p, right? But I want you to focus on this part right here. It's this right here that I want you to focus on. Because notice what we did. Notice that we can go ahead and pull out a p and then just keep these inside and it stays the same. Again, we just factored out again. That's what we just did. So what I can do here is notice how we have 5x squared times x plus 3, 3 times x plus 3. If I wanted to, I could and I will pull out the x plus 3 because they both have it, right? They both have it, so I can pull it out. That's what makes this a little tricky, but it is very, very, very understandable. And here is your regularly scheduled announcement, my party people. Remember, guys, I host a free class every single week and more classes beyond that. So make sure to check the group tutoring schedule so you know when the classes are, when you can expect to see me live so you can raise your score and get that job you want. So click there to see the schedule, and let's keep getting back to the YouTube video right over here. The x plus 3 can come out, and what's left on the inside? Well, what's left on the inside is going to be the 5x squared plus the 3. Then you close that parentheses, and there it is. You are done with factoring by grouping. That's it right there. Again, this seems like it's simple and hard at the same time. I know, because you do need to have practice. But pretty much the rule goes as follows. You literally are just going to go ahead and take the first two terms and the last two terms, split them up into their own groups, factor them individually, and what you're going to notice is that, hey, what's in the parentheses, there should be the same. And once you know that they're the same, you can go ahead and pull that out and then add what was outside of the parentheses together, because you're basically factoring it out. So with that said, my math party people, the answer here is going to be the following. 5x squared plus 3 times x plus 3. So 5x squared plus 3, x plus 3, right there. Answer choice C. Now again, I'm going to take you through a few more examples. Take some notes. Take some notes. Again, the first step with factoring by grouping is split up the first two and the last two terms. The next step is going to be to factor, or find the greatest common factor, factor it out, of each of those groups. And what you should notice is, again, what's left in the parentheses should be the same. So then you factor again, and you're done. Let me show you number 2. Here's what I mean. So we have 40k cubed plus 8k squared plus 25k plus 3. So we have this going on, and what I'm going to do, my math party people, is exactly what I did before. I'm going to go ahead, and group this over here in blue, and I'll group this one over here in red. So in the blue side, what can I pull out, what can I factor out of 40k cubed and 8k squared? Well, 40 and 8, 40 is divisible by 8. So I can definitely pull out an 8. And we have k cubed and k squared, so we can pull out k squared. They both share at least k squared. And so once I do that, my math party people, guess what? 40 divided by 8 is 5. Take out the k squared, you're left with k. With the 8k squared, well, look at this. I pulled out the 8k squared, so 8k squared divided by 8k squared is going to be 1. And so we have that right there, booyah. And so let's go ahead and see what happens in this other group. So we have over here 25k plus 3, 25k plus 5. Let's not make that mistake. Right there, 25k plus 5. And so we have, 25 and 5, they share a 5. So I'm going to pull out 5. And then what we notice is that, hey, 25 divided by 5 is 5k. Then 5 divided by 5 is 1. Notice that. Notice that we have 5k plus 1 in both. And so the way that we could write this out now is by factoring out. So if I were to go ahead literally and do this, let me just show it a little better for you, my math party people. If I were to write a huge parentheses like this, I can essentially pull out the 5k plus 1 from both of these. And then what's left on the inside is going to be 8k squared plus 5. And there we have it, just like that. Because what we just effectively done, my party people, is we basically have this entire parentheses here, and we have both terms on the inside of the parentheses sharing the same common factor, 5k plus 1. So we can pull that out and leave what's inside, 8k squared plus 5, just like that. That's what factoring by grouping looks like, my math party people. And so with that said, remember that this can be written like this, or it can be written the other way, 8k squared plus 5 times 5k plus 1. Either way to be written, it's fine, it's fine. And so the final answer here would end up being, let's go ahead and check out where the answer lies. It's going to be A. It's going to be answer choice A, just like that. So we're not done here. I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple of different examples, because these are the cleaner examples. This is where you don't really have to worry too much about negatives. So I want to make sure you do understand how to deal with negatives. So I'm going to go through question 26 here. Let's take a look at this one. we have 5x squared. Let me zoom in a little bit. We have 5x cubed plus 3x squared minus 5x minus 3. So let's go and write it out again. Let's do our thing. So we have 5x cubed plus 3x squared. And notice how we have a minus here in between. This is something you have to be very, very, very careful about. Super careful about. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a plus, but then I'm going to keep the negative with the 5x and minus 3. Why did I do that? For the simple reason being that, hey look, we want to factor by grouping here, and it's very likely, typically, that there aren't going to be any negative leading terms inside those parentheses. So with that said, we do want to be careful there. And number two, adding a negative is the same as subtracting, right? Right. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting, so let's go ahead and do that to make sure that the negative stays when you put the parentheses. Because think about it like this. If I were to do this, that's a vastly different problem because then you have to distribute the negative. That becomes positive and it's not the right thing. Gotta be careful there. So we want to make sure we include the negative with the term that it belongs with. So I'm going to go ahead, factor this one here, factor this entire group there, keeping the negative with the term it belongs with, now outside the parentheses. So let's deal with these negatives. Starting off with the blue over there, 5x cubed plus 3x squared. Well, 5x cubed and 3x squared, 5 and 3 don't have anything in common. But x cubed and x squared, they absolutely do. So we can take out an x squared right over here. And then we have 5x plus 3 left on the inside because all we did was factor out the x squared. Next up, we're going to look at the orange here, and I notice that we have a negative. So I'll pull out a negative. I'll pull out that minus. I will also take a look at this and say, well, there's nothing really else that I can pull out. They share a negative, so I can get that out of there. But besides that, 5 and 3 don't have anything in common, and they don't share any variables. So that's it. We pull out the negative, and it comes to be 5x plus 3. Because notice, if I were to distribute that negative, then we would have exactly what we started with. That's what you want. And notice also, again, how they share the term here. They share it. So what we can do, what we're perfectly allowed to do, is this. We can say, hey, we have ourselves this big old, a big old group here, and I noticed that the two terms share 5x plus 3. So I will go ahead and factor out 5x plus 3, and what's left on the inside, what's left in the other parentheses. Well, what's left in the other parentheses is going to be x squared right there, and then it's going to be minus, so minus what? Well, what number is in front of a parentheses if you don't see anything? It's going to be 1, right? If you don't see anything in front of a number or in front of a variable, it's going to be 1. So don't be shy there. It's going to be a 1. Let's go ahead and write that 1 right there, and there we go. So we have x squared minus 1 times 5x plus 3, and there's our answer. So right over there, my math party people, we can go ahead here and take care of business right here. And so we haven't gone over this quite yet. The answer is going to be D. And one thing we haven't gone over is recognizing a difference of squares. So there is a video for this. You should have watched it by now, but if not, no worries. So all we're going to be just paying attention to right here at this last step is x squared plus 1, or excuse me, minus 1. That's called a difference of squares. And I'll let you go ahead and go to that video to watch how this all works. But basically, when you're taking the difference or subtracting two perfect squares, x squared being x times x, 1 being 1 times 1, and you're subtracting them, the way it goes down is like this. X plus 1, x minus 1. And then you can go ahead and bring what we had earlier, the 5x plus 3. And that's where answer choice D comes from, right there. So let's go ahead and go over another one here, my math party people. I want to show you more negatives here. I want to show you more negatives. So let's go ahead and take care of number 28. You guys got number 28 going on here. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this up into 21 n cubed plus 14 n squared. I'm going to add, and I'm going to keep the minus 12n minus 8 again together because we need to keep the signs on the terms. And really quick, before we continue, my math party people, I know you're enjoying this, and you can have thousands of problems just like this in our program. In our program, you have 4 main things to help you succeed, and more. But mainly in our course, you're going to get access to recorded lessons. You're going to get access to guided practice just like this, worksheets that you can print out and try or keep them online. And lastly, speed drills to raise your confidence. That way when you take the test, there's no test anxiety. There's no pressure because you've been timed before, you know what to do, and that's the feeling that we want. And all of that's included in our program and more. So take a brief moment, click the link here in this video or in the description to learn about the program, and then reach out to us if you have any questions. Sign up now, let's get going, and let's get back to the problem. So with that, here's what we'll do. For focus on the first group, 21n cubed plus 14n squared. 21 and 14 share a 7. 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 2 is 14. We can also factor out n squared. They each, n cubed and n squared, have at least n squared. Booyah. And so with that, 21 divided by 7 is 3. Divide the n squared out, you still have an n left. After that, 14 divided by 7 is 2. N squared divided by n squared cancels out. Next up, we're checking out the green here. We have both terms being negative, so I can pull out that minus. And then we have 12 and 8 sharing a what? 4. Because 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 2 is 8. We can pull out that 4. And what's left on the inside? Well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Keep the n. 8 divided by 4 is 2. A positive 2 because, again, we pulled out the negative. And so, booyah, look at that. We can basically say that both of these terms share 3n plus 2. So we can pull out 3n plus 2. And then what's left? 7n squared minus 4. And there we go. This is what factoring by grouping looks like. This is a very important skill for what you're about to learn next, which is again going to be factoring trinomials where that leading coefficient isn't perfect. It's a 1. I'm going to show you that AC method, and you're going to be like, wow, this is actually very, very, very doable. So I'm going to take care of one more problem first here and just highlight this correct answer. The correct answer here will be 7n squared minus 4, 3n plus 2, right there. It's C. So let's go ahead and go through a ridiculous one, my math party people. Let's go ahead and cap it off with a hard one. So let's say we have, let's go ahead and go through number 76. These are just bigger numbers, I guess, but let's see if we can find a negative in front. Yeah, I like this one right here. I like number 80. I like number 80. Let's go ahead and go through this one. So we have 21x cubed minus 24x squared minus 14x plus 16. Okay, so let's take care of business. 21x cubed minus 24x squared. I see there's a minus there, but I'm going to add and keep the negative with the 14. Because again, you want to keep the signs on the terms. I'm going to group up this first one, and I'm going to group up this second one. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor. So what that's going to look like is this. I'll go ahead and say, hey, 21 and 24, they share 3 in common. X cubed and x squared share x squared. I'm going to open up that parentheses, and I notice that we have 3 into 21 is 7. X squared, x cubed, you have x left when you take it out. Next, minus, because we didn't change any signs. And then we're going to have ourselves over here, we have 24 divided by 3, which is 8. X squared divided by x squared cancels out. Up next, over here in purple, this is going to be the more difficult one, but still fairly straightforward. Notice how we have a positive 7x here, right? So there's a negative in front of there, so I'm going to pull out that negative so I can change the sign on what's on the inside to positive, then negative. Positive, then negative. Just really want you to notice that in terms of what we're going to do and why we do it. Next up, 14 and 16, what do they share? Well, they share a 2. 2 goes into 14 7 times, 2 goes into 16 8 times. So I can pull out the 2, and inside the parentheses, again, negative 14x divided by negative 2 is a positive 7x. 16 divided by negative 2 is a negative 8. Booyah. Look at what we just did. Look at the opportunity we gave ourselves. We have both of these terms, including 7x minus 8 as a factor. So we'll factor out the 7x minus 8. That's going to be factored out. And what's left? Well, we have the 3x squared minus 2. And that's what's left, and there we go. We have our answer, and we're good to go, my math party people. So with that, our answer here will be right over here, B. And we're set. And so my math party people, again, at this point, we have gone over factoring trinomials when, that x squared term is just 1. But when it's not 1, you're gonna have to learn how to do factoring by grouping. So this right here is, again, a pretext to what you're gonna learn next, which is, again, factoring trinomials where things are not as clean as we thought they were gonna be. So with that said, again, I'm Coach Anderson, your math coach as always. Let's go ahead and move forward into the worksheet. Make sure we practice factoring by grouping effectively, then do those speed drills so you can really make sure you have this good, and then move forward and learn about factoring quadratics, again, when that leading coefficient is not 1. I'll see you there. Let's get started and let's raise that score. I'll see you soon. My party people, as always, thanks for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can see all the updates that we come out with so you can keep improving. So don't wait, subscribe now, and then while you wait for the next video, look here or there to see a related video that's gonna help you improve even more. Let's keep raising that score and let's get the job we want. I'll see you soon.